fellows will be getting on board. Okay. All right. Learning sponsors, A Year of Learning by Sue and Arnie Gerlich, in memory of Malka Pearl Mann and Philip Mann, and Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, and Yerivka Pearl Rosner bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, and in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Shall assure her children and grandchildren in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan, friends of Avi Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gidler, Sharna Bas Yeshaya, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov, in her memory. Friends of Malka Levy, Malka Bat Yosef, friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bas Asher. A month of learning, Mordechai and Miriam Burr, in memory of his father, Yaakov ben Mordechai. Friends from Yarmithi, Miriam and Michael Schiffer's son, Zev David ben Shimon Halevi, David and Mindel Cheslow, his mother, Bela Bas Meir, Marcia Federbush, her husband, Uriel ben Harav Shimon, Gary and Marcia Schrager, his father, David ben Yosef, and his mother, Freda Bas Hendel. A week of learning by Shelley and Oscar Moll, in memory of her father, Shlomo Reuven ben Binyamin, by Larry Fish and Vicky Rubinovich Fish, in memory of his father, Avram David ben Shlomo Raphael HaKohen, and his mother, Bat Yechaya Bat Yisrael Yitzchak. They have a day of learning and by Miriam and Michael Schiffer, in memory of her, that's today, in memory of her mother, Bluma Bat Zev. Also today, a day of learning by Sandy and Jack Friedman, in memory of her mother, Brindle Bas Elisha Michael. Shabbos, a day of learning by Toby and Gary Greenstein, in memory of her father, Yosef Menachem ben Nachum. May the neshamas have an aliyah, crank rafia, velti yashir Hashem atzliah, l'chol b'nei Yisrael a good gebenchtia. Okay. Let's see, that's it. Yeah, okay. Okay. We're going to get started momentarily. We covered the Mishnah, so I just want to run through it quickly once more, okay? And then we'll start really on Kaf Gimel Amud Aleph with the Gemara today, right? So the Mishnah said, what about if somebody built their sukkah in a rather unique location or in a unique manner, right? One option was to make it on top of a wagon, on top of a ship, okay? Okay, the Mishnah said one could go into it on Yom Tov if he built it for those, right? If he built it on a tree, okay, on the upper branches of a tree, right? And here notice that the Art Scroll on 22b3 does give us a picture of that, okay? Right? Okay, in that situation, or on top of a camel, and I told you Koren had a picture of that. It's a valid sukkah, but one cannot enter it, climb up and enter it on Yom Tov. Okay? Koren and of the one on top of the camel. Okay, all right. So then the Gemara went on. Okay, what about the sides? Using a tree for the part of the walls of the sukkah. And the Mishnah then told us again that two sides with the tree and one side by a person, or two by a person and one by a tree, that it's a valid sukkah, but one cannot enter it on Yom Tov. All right, three sides by a person and one side by a tree, one can enter it on Yom Tov. All right, and then on to the top of Kaf Gimel, Amud Aleph, okay, where it gave us a general principle there. Zaklal kol shenital ha'ilan v'yichola la'amod b'fnei atzma kshera. That if the remove the tree, okay, and the sukkah was able to stand on its own, right? It is a valid sukkah, okay? What happens? Va'olin la biyom tov, and one can go into it on Yom Tov, okay? So Gemara is asking the question, Mani matnitin, as we start with the Gemara, okay? Who's taught this particular Mishnah? Who's the author, let's say, of the Mishnah? Okay, Rabbi Akiva, he suggests it's Rabbi Akiva Tanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita. Ha'oseh sukato b'rosh hasfina, one who makes his sukkah on the top of a boat. Okay, Rabban Gamliel posel v'Rabbi Akiva machshir. That Rabbi Gamliel says it was not a valid sukkah, and Rabbi Akiva says it is. And so we have an example of a maseh, an actual incident. And remember, when the Gemara brings an incident, okay, it's not just to tell us a nice story. Okay, it's basically an effort to justify a halachic position. Okay. So what happened? Maaseh b'Rabban Gamliel, b'Rabbi Akiva. There was once a situation when Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva were traveling on a boat together. Shahayu ba'in b'sfina, they were tried. Amad Rabbi Akiva ba'asa sukkah b'rosh hasfina. And Rabbi Akiva established a sukkah on the boat. Okay. Lemachar, the next day, what happened? Nishba ruach vakarta, along came a strong wind and blew down Rabbi Akiva's sukkah there on the boat. Amarla Rabban Gamliel, and Rabban Gamliel responds, Akiva, hechan sukkatcha, where's your sukkah, Akiva? Okay, so what happens? All right, so in other words, is this any real proof? It's proof simply the fact that Rabban Gamliel says it's okay, and I'm not okay, and Rabbi Akiva says it is okay.
The question whether you were allowed to make a sukkah on top of the boat. Why?
Okay. Because if it...
Well, let's go on with the Gemara, and then we'll come back to your question. Okay, I think the Gemara is going to answer the question. All right, in a moment. Okay, Amar Abaye. So Abaye comes back, and he wants to explain this incident and their machloket. The Kuli Alma, everybody is in agreement. Heicha de'ena yichola la'amod beruach mitzuya diyavsha. Here, everybody is in agreement. Where it's not able, I'm going to say, to withstand a normal wind on dry land, okay? Lo klumhi, it's nothing. The sukkah is not worthwhile, all right? It's not a valid sukkah. Yichula la'amod b'she'ena mitzuya diyavsha. Okay, if it's able to stand, okay? Right? Well, okay, with an able to stand up when there is not a significant wind, okay, on land, kuli amalo plige dikshera. Everybody is going to be in agreement that it is valid. If it's able,
very strong.
If it's a wind on land, even if it's a fairly strong wind, okay. Keep pligi. Where are they arguing? Says Abaye. Okay. Where it's able to stand. Okay. When there's a fairly strong wind on land, Ve'ena yichola la'amod beruach she'ena metzuya diyavsha, where it's not able to stand when it's a strong sea wind. Okay, and that I'm using that explanation.
No, it's still a land.
Well, but we'll see.
Sea winds tend to be stronger.
That's the point. Okay, so what happens? That's based on the Koren, by the way, explanation, as opposed to the Art Scroll.
What?
That's based on Koren's explanation.
But it still has the word Yavash.
Right. So, in other words, if you have a strong wind on land and the sukkah can stand, it's a valid sukkah. Okay, but if that same sukkah would not be able to withstand in a location where there might be stronger winds, in other words, it's not able to stand on land, hurricane force winds, for example, or on a boat where there's stronger sea winds, then the people would say, Abaye is saying it would not be a valid sukkah. All right? Now, Rabban Gamliel Savar. So here now we get to another view of this machloket. And this may answer your question, Sam. Rabban Gamliel is of the opinion, Sukkah dirat keva ba'inan, that a sukkah needs to be a fairly substantial facility. Okay? Right? Keva ba'inan. We saw that before. That I believe that was Rabbi Yehuda's view. Okay? V'kevan de'ina yichola. Okay? Right? V'kevan de'ina yichola la'amod beruach mitzuyad yam. And since it's not able to withstand on a situation where there is a strong wind at sea, right? Lo klumhi. It is therefore not a valid sukkah whatsoever. Rabbi Akiva Savar, he's of the opinion, sukkah dirat ar'i ba'inan, that the sukkah needs to be only a temporary facility. And since it would be able to withstand any wind on land, kshera, it would be valid. And so that gives us our basic explanation. So Rabbi Akiva felt the sukkah he built would have withstood wind on land. It's a valid sukkah. Okay. Nobody asks the question, by the way.
Environment.
Right. But nobody asks.
Nobody questions that point, because you can make a sukkah, for example, in the Mediterranean Sea, where there's no such thing as a heavy wind, except maybe
that's
in
the sea they're
it's
talking
a possibility
about.
or
Right.
something. But majority of the time when we're making a sukkah, it's towards the end of when it's still springtime. It's not spring, it's autumn time.
Right.
So therefore, personally, it's the same thing that got pulled by sukkah on a wagon, and all of a sudden the wagon hit and it's moving and it hits a rock and it destroys it. But it's the same principle to me. I don't see the difference.
What is nature?
Good point.
What is nature?
Okay. The other aspect is, what are they doing taking a trip so close to Sukkot?
Or a ship
So
before Shabbos.
Okay, that could be an option.
Or alternatively,
They were going
on their way for a bar mitzvah.
Sure. The actual story elsewhere is that they were actually traveling from Eretz Yisrael to Rome. Okay, and it was actually to try to get the emperor to
let them build
to stop a decree that the governor in Judea had established, and that was why.
They were on a shluchas mitzvah.
Right.
That the governor of Judea should do what?
That the governor of Judea had established certain decrees. And so they went to Rome to try to meet with the emperor to get him to overrule the decree. Okay?
And Rabbi Akiva was the machmir, because they really got it from
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go on now. Oh, Al Gabe Gamal. Anyone who wants to...
So I still don't understand. Why should you even ask the question whether you're allowed to build the sukkah on a boat? Why not? Why should that question arise?
Sure. Come on, you must at some time in your life, you must have rode, right? Sam, sometime you must have been on a boat in your life, right?
Took a cruise.
Okay.
When I moved from Brooklyn, I had a sukkah that I had for 10 years in Brooklyn. It was fine. The first year in Far Rockaway, it was destroyed by the wind.
Yeah,
Right.
I believe it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, Al Gabe Gamal. Gentlemen, let's,
The other issue, Rabbi, the other issue is if the boat is near shore,
yeah,
but is not moored,
right.
so there would be an issue of
Okay.
going onto the boat.
Okay.
They didn't raise that.
Right.
Boat is not tied down, but is at the dock. You would not be able to go on to that yacht.
Right. Okay.
So,
Matnit and Mani, again, the second part of our Mishnah, building the sukkah on the camel. Okay. According to whom? Rabbi Meir he. That seems to imply that it's by Rabbi Meir. The Tanya, who taught in a Braita, Ha'oses al Gabe Bahema, one who makes his sukkah on top of an animal. Rabbi Meir Machshir, Rabbi Yehuda Posel. Rabbi Meir says it's valid, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's no good. My Talmud, the Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda hold that way? Remember, Makra says a pasuk, Chag Hasukot Ta'aseh Lecha Shivat Yamim, that you must make the sukkah. I'm going to use the word viable for an extent of 7 days. Okay, what happens? Namely, sukkah haru'uya l'shiv'ah shma sukkah. That a sukkah that is viable then for a full 7 days, that is what makes it a valid sukkah. Okay, according to Rabbi Yehuda, sukkah she'ena ru'uya l'shiv'ah lo shma sukkah. And a sukkah that is not viable for 7 days is not a valid sukkah. Rabbi, remember, that's why I said, Rabbi Yehuda said also it had to be keva. Okay, keep those thoughts in mind. Right. For Rabbi Meir, hanami midoraita mechaze chazia. And Rabbi Meir held that here, though, we could say that Torah requirement, it would be suitable. V'Rabbanan hu de gazruba. And it was the rabbis, however, who made this alternative decree. Okay?
that you couldn't use it
Right.
an animal.
That you couldn't use the animal. Now, what happens? Let's take another example. Since we can't use build the sukkah on the animal, all right, what are we going to say? Maybe I'll use an animal for a wall of the sukkah. Okay? All right. Lead
This
over.
is an appealing.
Okay. Asa'ala behema dofen l'sukkah. If he made an animal the wall of the sukkah, Rabbi Meir posel, Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Flip the views, right? Rabbi Meir says it's invalid, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's suitable. It's valid. Why? Okay. Because Rabbi Meir used to hold davar sheyesh bo ruach chayim, anything that is a living, we come here. All right. Okay, thank you. All right. What happens? Rabbi Meir says anything that is alive, eino sinoto lo dofen l'sukkah. We can't make it into a wall for the sukkah. Velo, okay, lechi lemabui. Not only that, but you can't use that live item as a cross beam, a snake. Yeah, I'm sure. I could see some hanging some boa constrictor.
It's not a korah.
Okay. All right. Well, lechi lemabui. All right. So you'd hang the snake or the boa constrictor hanging straight down. Okay. All right. Velo.
Do they differentiate between a two-hump camel and a one-hump camel?
Not here.
My nafkamina.
Okay. The picture in Koran. All right. Okay. All right. So velo pasin lebirot, and nor can you use, okay, a living thing. He said also to those double boards that were put around the wells, okay, for being able to draw water on Shabbos, right? Velo golel lekever, nor could you use it, he said, as a covering for a cave that's used as a burial place. Okay? Again, Koren happens to have a picture of that as well, right? Mishum Rabbi Yossi Aglili, based on what Rabbi Yossi Aglili was saying, all right, Amru, they said, Af ein kotvin alav gitei nashim. Also, likewise, you can't use a live animal to write a get on its hide. That's the point, right? My Talmud the Rabbi Meir. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir? Okay, Abaye Amar Shema Tamut, because perhaps the animal is going to die. But Rabbi Zera Amar, he says Shema Tivrach, that perhaps the animal is going to flee, walk away. All right. So let's take another example. All right, if I'm not using a cow, all right, or an ox, what other large animal could I use? An elephant. Okay, so bapil, kashur, about a animal. Let's take an elephant that is bound in that location. Okay.
I'm going to stand in place for 7 days.
Okay.
If it's tied down.
If it's tied down and you feed it right there.
I hope you have a gas mask.
Kuli amalo plige. Everybody is in agreement. The inami might yesh benavelato, that even if the animal, if the elephant were to die, its carcass is so large that it would, okay, of the elephant, yeah, the carcass of the elephant is so large that it would still have 10 tfachim and it would still be a valid wall. Even if it died and fell right in place.
Itself is 10
okay? Yesh b'nevelato asara, that the carcass of the animal, okay, guys, the carcass is still 10 tfachim, all right? Ki pligi, where do they argue? Bapil sheino kashur, if the elephant is not tied in place, right? Leman da'yomar, according to the one who says Shema Tamut lo chayshina, the one who says maybe the animal's going to die, we don't have any concerns. The carcass of a dead elephant is still large enough to make a wall. Okay? Leman da'amar gzera Shema tivrach chayshina, but for the one who says it might be moved away, okay? That,
and it's not tied down.
right,
so
it's not tied down. It could, you have to be concerned that you're going to lose the wall. Okay. Laman da'amar gzera shema tamut. According to the one who says it might die, nichush shema tivrach. Maybe we should suspect, okay, that it's going to go away. Ela b'pil sheino kashur kuli alma lo pligi. But with a elephant not tied down, everybody doesn't disagree. Where do they disagree? Behema kshura. No, maybe they do disagree when the animal is tied down. Laman damar gzera shema tamut chayshina. Perhaps there we would say that there's a decree lest the animal die, and therefore we do have to be concerned that the nevela of that animal doesn't satisfy the requirement for a valid wall. Okay, Laman da'amar gzera shema tivrach lo chayshinan. In that case, we wouldn't say use the decree that the animal might flee because they wouldn't be concerned. He's tied down.
Also, dead animals don't
move, right? Laman da'amar gzera shema tivrach. And according to the one who says perhaps the animal is going to flee, nichush shema tamut. Shouldn't we suspect maybe the animal is going to die in that case? Mita lo shchicha. The death of the animal in that situation is not so common. Right? Okay, so that's the point. Now let's go to another problem. We've got this animal, whether it's a ox, whether it's a large cow, whether it's an elephant, isn't there an opening between the ground and the bottom, the body of the elephant? So we have this breach, this open space, right? So the Gemara says, Vaha'ika Ravcha, the Bene. But isn't there this breach between the, that ground level and the bottom of the animal's body? Okay? Da'avid, so what do? Da'avid le behutza v'dafna, that we take things like branches and things like that, maybe from a palm tree or something else, okay? And we can tie it between the legs of the animal, right? Right, v'dafna, right? V'dilma rava, okay? Perhaps the animal's going to crouch down, and therefore that's a problem, okay? Right? Right. So what happens? The maticha ba'ashle milayel. Okay, we tie it from above. Okay, so therefore, okay, and therefore, in other words, you tie these items and you wrap it around through the top. Let's say like around to the top of the animal. Okay. And according to the one who says perhaps the animal is going to die, Nami ha maticha ba'ashle milah. Here too, we could say we could tie it from above. Okay. So what happens? Zimnin demokin bepachot mishlosha samuch l'schach. Okay. So what happens? So he says there are times that one stands the animal so its top is less than 3 tfachim high from the schach, and therefore the kevan the maita kavtza. But maybe if that's the case, when the nevela of the animal is there, the body is going to shrink. Okay, all right. So that's what's going to happen.
The lungs deflate, and the animal
right. The whole
bit lower.
So it's going to. So if you tie it from the schach, okay, and the body of the animal deflates, whether it's lungs, whatever, okay, if it's less, right, if it's more than the 3 tfachim of levud from where the schach is, that wall is no longer a valid wall.
Why is there no concern about the smell from a dead animal?
The what? The smell?
The smell. There's no, that would ruin the sukkah. That would not make it a pleasant place.
Right? So that would make you say it would not be a good place to be. Right?
Definitely, right.
You wouldn't have the obligation to be there, maybe. Right.
That would, if there was smell was an issue, it would disqualify.
Right. Right. Add that. Right. That would send people out.
So the assumption here is that dead elephants don't think.
That could be. Or the opposite. The opposite is if you have.
How many dead elephants do you
know? Okay.
I know a lot of dead Republicans.
All right. Okay. Come on. V'lav adate. Okay. And then maybe that does not, it's not on the person's mind. He says in that situation that they would think, they have to act, okay, and to put something in to get it back up to within level. Okay? Umi amar Abaye. So now the Gemara asks a question. Umi amar Abaye. Did Abaye really say Rabbi Meir chiyesh lamita? That Rabbi Meir is concerned about the possibility of the death of the animal? Rabbi Yehuda lo chiyesh, and Rabbi Yehuda does not concerned about the possible death of an animal. V'hatnan, but aren't we taught elsewhere in another Mishnah the following? Bat Yisrael, sheniseit the Kohen, a Jewish girl who is the daughter of an Israelite, and she has married a Kohen. Okay, she's an Israelite. Right? Here, yeah. An Israelite, and she has married a Kohen. And what's going to happen? Vahalach ba'ala lemedinat hayam. Okay, and her husband has taken a trip at some point. We don't know if it was Sukkot or not. Okay, ochelet betruma. She is still able to eat truma. In other words, the implication of this Mishnah we're going to see is b'cheskat shehu kayam, that we have a chazaka that he's alive. Okay, in other words, we're not chiyesh for mita. We're not going to be suspect of the possibility of his death. Urminan Allah, and we raise a contradiction and question about this. Hare zegitech sha'a achat kodem mitati. What about a situation where if he is concerned about her status, he will say to her, okay, her status, okay, and therefore he doesn't want her to be an almana, okay, where she cannot, where she has to, or be in a situation where she has to deal with other things like yibum, okay, and he tells her, this is going to be your get 1 hour before my death. What happens, says the Gemara? Asura le'echol b'truma miyad. From the time he gave her that get, she is now no longer eligible to eat the truma. So therefore, that seems to tell us that you are chiyesh, that you do suspect need to your situation of death. Okay, so we have a contradiction here. Va'amar Abaye. And Abaye says, lo kasha. It's not a problem. Why? Excuse me. Ha, Rabbi Meir. One is the view of Rabbi Meir, the lo chiesh lamita, where he says he does not suspect death. That's the earlier statement. Ha, Rabbi Yehuda, the chiesh lamita. And the other is the view of Rabbi Yehuda, who does suspect the possibility of death. Now, to Tanya, as we go on, as taught elsewhere in a Braita, halokeach yayin mi bein hakutim, one who acquires, I'm going to say, wine from the kutim. Here, these kutim are the Samaritans. Okay. And what are we concerned about? That they do not tithe their produce properly. Okay. What does he do when he acquires such wine? He needs to take trumos and masros. He needs to tithe it. Okay. So what could he do? Let's assume that he bought 100 bottles or 100 containers of wine. Okay. From his local.
It's Friday afternoon.
Okay.
Very close.
Whatever. All right. So what could he say as follows? Omer. All right. Shnei lugin shani atid lahafrish harehein truma. Okay. That I could take from my truma gedola. I have to take a 50th. And so therefore I take 2 out of the 100 and put them aside for my local Kohens here, over there in the.
He doesn't actually do it.
No, but he intends. That's what he's saying. All right, what happens then? Okay, then furthermore, asara, asar rishon. All right, 10 I would take for right for the next tithe. Right, tisha maaser sheni, and I'll take another 9. Okay, and that'll be my Maaser Sheni. Okay, and I do that on certain years. Okay, as opposed to the years in the 3rd and 6th cycle when I have to do Maaser Ani. Okay, Umechal. Okay, now Vishotem Miyad Divrei Rabbi Meir. On the word Mechal, there are at least 2 or 3 different explanations. One would be he therefore makes it deconsecrated, and therefore he's able to drink the wine immediately. Okay, that is one explanation. That's how Art Scroll explains it.
It deconsecrates the Maaser Sheni.
Right.
On a coin.
On a coin. He deconsecrates it onto money. Therefore, he can take the money, bring the money to Yerushalayim, buy the fruit there, things like that. No, no. Okay.
Doing this.
He doesn't do it on Shabbos. Okay.
And it was just before Shabbos. Now he wants to use that wine for Kiddush, but it's Tevel.
Okay.
You're not allowed to take Trumas and Meisers
on Shabbos,
so
right?
He uses Brera, and he says, "I'm going to drink 88
cups
of Lugin of this wine. I'm going to leave 21." 89. I'm going to leave 20.
That's his intent.
2 will be Meiser, be Truma. 10 will be Meiser.
Right.
Rishon,
Okay.
9 will be Meiser Sheni. And then he's Michael, then Meiser Sheni, so he can drink
right.
up.
So basically, it's that. So one explanation of Meichal is he deconsecrates the Maaser Sheni onto a coin. Okay.
You can do that on Shabbos, that coin part?
No, you don't touch the coin.
No, he's saying this. This is his, okay.
Nothing physical.
Nothing
okay,
physical.
no, this is his intent, and he may verbalize it, okay? So that's the point, okay? So that's one explanation. There are other explanations of Meichal that the Koran also brings, okay? But this is the one that Art Scroll focuses on, okay? And that's what allows him to drink it immediately, okay? Just to go over very briefly, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Kaf Dalet Amud Aleph, right? Rabbi Shimon, the 3 of them, Osrim. They prohibit doing so, right? So the Gemara then tells us Ipuch, okay? Maybe we
have a problem now that
okay, hold on, Mike. Okay. So just, we'll see this more tomorrow, but Ipuch, Rabbi Meir Chiesh Lamita. Maybe it's the opposite view, that it's Rabbi Meir who is concerned about death, but Rabbi Yehuda Lo Chiesh Lamita. And he does not, and it's Rabbi Yehuda who doesn't suspect. Why? Tanya, because we have a Braita that says, Asa'ala behema dofen l'sukkah. If he made an animal a wall of his sukkah, Rabbi Meir posel the Rabbi Yehuda machshir. That Rabbi Meir says it's accepted, it's not valid. Rabbi Yehuda says it's valid. Kasha the Rabbi Meir, Ada Rabbi Meir. And here's where we have then a contradiction of Rabbi Meir statement one place versus another, and that's where we're going to stop today. Okay. That's exactly. So you'll come back tomorrow.
No, it's not a cliffhanger, it's a hanging elephant.
Okay. All right.